ADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to the second edition of Newslink. First, our top stories. Sierra Leone's Wadr takes over ECOWAS leadership from Nigeria's Tinubu as he urges unity amid growing instability.
ECOWAS must reform itself and become more transparent, efficient, and responsive to its people's needs.
Ivorian President Wadr keeps nation in suspense on four-term bid despite party endorsement.
I have heard you. I understand you. I thank you for your trust. In the coming days, after careful reflection, with all my soul and conscience, I will make a decision.
Malian Transitional President Goita begins a 5-day official visit in Moscow at the invitation of Russian President Putin. And outrage in Guinea as former Bar President Mohamed Traore abducted and found unconscious. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
My name is Sankule Jankon. Many thanks for joining our broadcast. We begin the bulletin with news from the West African sub-region. A new chapter has opened for the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, as President Julius Maada of Sierra Leone assumes leadership as the new chair of the regional bloc. He succeeds Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who completed his tenure after 2 years at the helm. President Bio's appointment was confirmed during the 67th ordinary session of the Authority of Heads of State and Government held in Abuja, where West African leaders convened to tackle urgent political and economic challenges confronting the region. Our correspondent in Abuja, Yeshenu Sasetu, brings us the details in this report.
Sierra Leone's President Julius Maada Bio has been elected as the new chairman of the ECOWAS, taking over from Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who held the position for the past 2 years. President Tinubu's tenure was marked by strong advocacy for economic integration, regional security, and a firm stance on restoring constitutional order in member states affected by military coups. In his handover speech, Tinubu called for unity of purpose in the region.
I remain confident that with the continued cooperation of all its members, ECOWAS will scale over greater heights in our collective pursuit of peace, security, stability, and prosperity for our people and for our region.
In his inaugural address, President Bio outlined 4 strategic priorities for his tenure.
First, restoring constitutional order and deepening democracy. Second, revitalizing regional security cooperation. Third, unlocking economic integration. Fourth, building institutional credibility.
He urged member states to stand together in the face of growing instability and economic challenges, reaffirming his commitment to unity and reform.
ECOWAS must reform itself and become more transparent, efficient, and responsive to its people's needs.
As the mantle of leadership shifts, President Bio's agenda is expected to shape ECOWAS's direction over the next year. For WADR, Yechinu Sasitu in Abuja.
Still on news on the sub-regional bloc, Ghana is demanding clear time-bound steps to accelerate the long-delayed rollout of the ECO single currency for West Africa. The call was made by Ghana's Deputy Finance Minister, Thomas Ampen Nyako, as he addressed the 2025 West African Economic Summit underway in Abuja, Nigeria. Now, the Detective has more in the following report.
More than 2 decades after the idea of the ECO single currency was first proposed, West African nations are yet to see its full implementation, despite countless high-level meetings, communiques, and regional commitments. The ECO currency, backed by ECOWAS, is designed to promote seamless trade, lower transaction costs, and boost economic integration integration across the region's member states, but progress has been slow. Speaking at the summit in Abuja, Ghana's Deputy Finance Minister Thomas Ampem Nyako urged regional leaders to move beyond promises and political statements.
Undeniably, we all support the dream of a single currency, the eco. But while we continue dreaming, our traders struggle.
He revealed that in 2024 alone, businesses across West Africa lost an estimated $2.3 billion in value due to currency conversion costs, a clear consequence of the fragmented monetary landscape. To tackle this, Ghana proposed the immediate establishment of a regional currency convertibility mechanism supported by ECOWAS central banks to enable smooth transactions between currencies such as the Naira, Cedi, and CFA franc, particularly through digital platforms.
The absence of a common West African currency continues to fragment our economies, hinder investment, and raise the cost of doing business across our borders. It is time to move from vision to action. Ghana therefore calls for the immediate establishment of a time-bound action plan for the ECO, with clear milestones, institutional responsibilities, and monitoring mechanisms, all under the direct political authority of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government.
The Deputy Minister stressed that the future of the region's economic integration depends on bold, decisive leadership, adding that the time to act is now. For WADR, Nadidi Teti, Accra.
In a related development, Liberian President Joseph Nyoma Boakai has underscored the need for unity and stronger regional cooperation to tackle West Africa's growing economic challenges. Speaking at the opening of the 2025 West Africa Economic Summit WAES in Abuja, Nigeria, President Boakai praised Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for his leadership in convening the summit, which also marks the 50th anniversary of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. WDR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
President Boakai acknowledged the region's ongoing economic challenges but expressed optimism that these can be overcome through collective will and stronger regional collaboration. A key highlight in his address was Liberia's recent election to a non-permanent seat on the United Nations Security Council for the 2026-2027 term.
This summit has been held in the ambient of our community's Golden Jubilee, provides a vital platform for reflection, coordination, and renewed commitment to the economic transformation of our sub-region. Even after 50 years of our extensive existence and work, the challenges we face are still present and complex, but they are not insurmountable.
As Liberia works toward economic revival, President Boakai reaffirmed the country's commitment to the African Continental Free Trade Area and outlined budget priorities focused on sustainable agriculture and rural transformation.
This action reflects Liberia's determination to play an active role in the regional and continental value chain. Liberia has also identified several priority sectors for strategic investment. Agriculture, where we seek to scale productivity, increase food security, and promote agribusiness.
President Boakai emphasized that peace and stability remain the foundation for sustainable economic growth. He reaffirmed Liberia's dedication to regional cooperation, democratic governance, and efforts to strengthen integration across West Africa. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let's dive into politics and the impending election in Côte d'Ivoire, while President Alassane Ouattara continues to maintain suspense over whether he will seek re-election in the October 2025 presidential elections. At the close of his party's Congress on Sunday in Abidjan, where the ruling RHDP officially endorsed him as its candidate, President Ouattara stopped short of accepting the nomination, instead asking for more time to reflect. While the Ivorian leader says he needs to carefully consider his decision, the political opposition has issued a strong warning, cautioning that a new bid for the presidency would amount to an excessive fourth term. Christopher Atichu reports.
You have told me, Mr. President, not to abandon you. After so many battles fought together, I feel the strength and sincerity of your call. These calls I cannot ignore.
Before tens of thousands of party supporters at Ibimpe Olympic Stadium, the country's largest, President Ouattara, said he would take a few days to decide whether to accept his party score to run in the upcoming election, now just 4 months away.
I have heard you. I understand you. I thank you for your trust. In the coming days, after careful reflection, with all my soul and conscience, I will make a decision.
Over the weekend, nearly 7,000 delegates at the RHDP Congress unanimously re-elected Ouattara as party president. But while Ouattara continues to keep the country in suspense, the opposition is voicing strong concern over the implications of another run, which it insists would represent a fourth term in office. Damana Adia-Pikas, a senior member of the PPACI, had this to say.
President Alassane Ouattara has exhausted his terms in office. As head of state of Côte d'Ivoire, he was entitled to 2 terms, and he completed those 2 terms. So there was really nothing to think about. He could have responded honestly by telling them that under the Ivorian constitution, which is the supreme law, he is unable to answer their call favorably, and that he considers this gathering a farewell for the time he has spent leading the country.
With the political climate already tense just months ahead of the polls, opposition leaders are calling on the international community to act to prevent a potential post-election crisis in Côte d'Ivoire.
Abidjan correspondent Marcel Ariston Blaise report presented to you by Christopher Atichu. Meanwhile, supporters of Côte d'Ivoire ruling party, the RHDP, say they are optimistic that President Alassane Ouattara will respond favorably to calls for him to contest the October 2025 presidential election. Their confidence follows a wave of endorsement urging the president to seek another term despite lingering debates around term limits and succession. Many within the party argue that Ouattara's leadership remains crucial for national stability and economic growth. While the president has not officially declared his intentions, insiders believe a decision may be announced in the coming weeks.
We hope to have clarity in any case. That's the hope of all the party supporters. But the final word belongs to the President of the Republic, the party leader. It's up to him to make the final decision. But in any case, this is a formal request we are expressing.
We've been waiting for a long time. We are waiting for that answer. We hope he will give us a satisfying response, one that is clearly a yes.
For the party supporters, it's very, very clear. There is only one candidate, President Alassane Ouattara, and there will only be one winner in October 2025, President Alassane Ouattara.
Some supporters of the ruling RHDP. Let's head to the AES state of Mali as the transitional president, General Assimi Goïta, is in Moscow for a 5-day official visit at the invitation of Russian President Vladimir Putin. The visit, which coincides with the upcoming Russia-Africa summit, is expected to deepen cooperation between Bamako and Moscow in areas such as security, energy and transport. Abdullah Hassan has the details.
Mali's transitional leader, General Assimi Goïta, touched down in Moscow on the morning of Sunday, June 22, 2025, following his departure from Bamako the previous evening. He is visiting at the invitation of Russian President Vladimir Putin and will remain in Russia for at least 5 days. Upon arrival, Goïta was warmly received by members of the Malian community in Russia, Russian government officials, and members of the diplomatic corps. The visit marks his second participation in the Russia-Africa Summit following his attendance at the 2023 edition held in St. Petersburg. According to a statement from the Malian government, the trip is aimed at strengthening cooperation between the two nations in key sectors such as security, energy, and transport. During his stay, President Goïta is scheduled to hold a one-on-one meeting with President Putin, participate in bilateral talks involving both delegations, and oversee the signing of a number of strategic partnership agreements. The visit underscores Mali's ongoing pivot toward new alliances amid shifting global and regional dynamics.
Abdullah Hassan filed that report. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Sierra Leone's Madabio takes over ECOWAS leadership from Nigeria's Tinubu as he urges unity amid growing instability. Ivorian President Wadr keeps nation in suspense on fourth-term bid despite party endorsement. Malian Transitional President Goita begins 5-day official visit in Moscow at the invitation of Russian President Putin. Still ahead, outrage in Guinea as former Bar President Mohamed Traore abducted and found unconscious. We do have press review, guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Guinea, lawyer Mohamed Traore, former Bar President and former member of the National Transitional Council (CNT), was abducted late Friday night into Saturday at his home by hooded men reportedly dressed in military uniforms, according to his family. He was later found abandoned, unconscious in a village not far from the capital, Conakry. The Guinea Bar Association and human rights organizations have condemned the incident as a serious violation of human rights. Guinean lawyers are threatening to take action in the coming days. Imo Edet reports.
Having returned from Mecca last Wednesday, Mohamed Traore will resign from the National Transitional Council (CNT) in December 2024, was forcibly taken from his home by armed, hooded men and taken to an unknown location. His wife recounts the scene.
We were sleeping. It was around 3 a.m. when we heard loud noises at the door. They were knocking, hitting the door very hard. They tried to break it down and eventually they came in. There were 5 of them. They showed a photo on their phone. One of them looked at it and said, "That's the one we are looking for." That's how they took my husband away. I'm certain it's because of his public positions. All I ask is for the President of the Republic to release my husband because he's innocent. And what he's doing is simply doing his job.
Later that same day, the former Bar President was found unconscious and abandoned in the locality just a few kilometers from Conakry. The Guinean Human Rights Organization has denounced what it describes as a barbaric act that must not go unpunished. Al-Sen Isal, head of communication at OGHD, reacts.
Maître Mohamed Traore is one of the most outspoken dissenting voices, not just in Guinea, but beyond. When it comes to the abuses of the transition, this man is an example of courage in the fight for freedom in Guinea. The way he was abducted made it all more important for the GDS to express its outrage and to condemn this practice, which has sadly become recurrent in the country. Today, no one is safe in Guinea.
In a statement, the Guinean Bar Association called for a swift and impartial investigation, condemning what it describes as a serious attack on fundamental freedoms and the rule of law. The Lawyers Association has also announced an extraordinary General Assembly in the coming days to determine what actions to take in response to the incident.
Channel Alpha Ibrahim Balde's report presented to you by Imo Edet. And in a similar development concerning attacks on prominent voices in Togo, where concerns over the crackdown on dissent continue to make headlines. Active rapper Amron regained his freedom on Saturday, June 21, 2025, after spending nearly a month at the Zebe Psychiatric Hospital in Aneho. He was arrested at his home on May 26, sparking widespread debate and protest over the motives behind his confinement. Augustine Coley reports.
Amron, known for his outspoken criticism of the government, was arrested at his residence on May 26 and subsequently confined to the Zebe Psychiatric Hospital, where he spent 4 weeks on observation and treatment. The first public image of the artist after his release shows him standing behind his lawyer, Councillor Celestine Agbogan. The photo, widely circulated on social media, quickly made rounds across Togo. According to his lawyer, gendarmes who carried out the arrest claimed Amron was mentally ill, which led to his forced hospitalization for what authorities called appropriate treatment. His family, legal team, and close associates rejected that claim from the onset, insisting the rapper had no history of mental health issues before his arrest. Irom had been taken into custody following his public criticism of the government. He was released a few days after issuing an apology via a video recorded from inside the psychiatry hospital, a move some believe was made under duress. His arrest sparked demonstrations in Lomé on June 6 as supporters demanded his release. Since then, calls for the resignation of Foreign Assembly, President of the Council of Ministers, have been added to the list of public demands. Further protests have been announced for June 26, 27, and 28 in Lomé and other parts of the country as tensions continue to rise.
Lomé correspondent Sylvie Wadrago's report, presented to you by Augustine Cooley.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Let's join Yachinu Sasetu in Abuja for the press review.
Hello there. These are the stories making the headlines in Nigeria today, beginning with Punch newspaper with a bold headline: Pastoral crisis. 11 states embrace FG ranching plan as killing surge. In Benue State is in the news again as gunmen abduct passengers. News from ECOWAS: Tinubu ends tenure, calls for standby force activation. Well, Iran-Israel war is affecting oil with a projection petrol may hit 1,000 naira per litre as oil price soars. Moving over to Vanguard, the journey to 2027 persists. Why Tinubu can't drop Shetima? PDP is protesting, says INEC has no right to control our meetings. And Catholic bishops call for prayers to end killings. We'll move to This Day newspaper. NSITF pledges to promote workplace safety culture in Nigeria. Let's take a look at Nigerian Tribune, starting with politics. APC is jittery. Tinubu is one-term president, says PDP. More towards 2027 elections. Controversy trails application to register ADA. ADA is All Democratic Alliance, which is a proposed new coalition party. Presidency replies Lamido, says Tinubu played leading role against June 12 annulment. And in the business section, global oil prices may rise as Iran vows retaliation after US strikes. And finally, let's take Metro stories from the Nation newspaper, starting with police arrest 7, recover illegal arms in Enugu crackdown. 4-year-old rescued in staged kidnapping in Katsina. Good news for the parents there. How Kano blast happened, this is according to the police. And in sports, Okocha advises Osimhen, Boniface to make career choices they can own. But Sprint star Favor Ofili switches allegiance to Turkey. A big loss for Nigeria there. Well, that's it for press review today. Back to the studio.
Thank you very much, Yachinu Sasetu in Abuja for the press review.
Politics,
Analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, West Africa is at a crossroads with political instability, economic challenges, and ongoing security threats gripping the region. Leadership at the sub-regional level has never been more critical. At the 67th ordinary session of ECOWAS heads of state and government held in Abuja, Nigeria, a significant transition took place. President Julius Maada Bio of Sierra Leone was appointed as the new chair of the Economic Community of West African States, succeeding Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. As President Bio takes the helm, expectations are high. He inherits a region facing serious test cases, from the ongoing withdrawal of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger from ECOWAS to concerns over terrorism, democratic backsliding, and economic disintegration. So what does this leadership change mean for West Africa? What direction might ECOWAS take under its new chair? Joining us now to unpack the implications is Austin Egbe, Wademo's liaison officer, with the insight into regional dynamics and what lies ahead of ECOWAS.
More like a positive and a negative externality in it. Because first is that you expect that President Tinubu ought to have transmitted power to a francophone country based on the tradition of ECOWAS. It was Ghana President Nana Akufo-Addo who transmitted then to Sisi Umbalo of Guinea-Bissau, and then from there to Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And you expect that Bola Ahmed Tinubu ought to have maybe gone back to the francophone country. But realistically, There is no Francophone country at the moment you will expect that this is a fellow. Maybe I don't want to sound so pessimistic. It's not for a form of insult. It is that President Faye, who was in a meeting, is a bit recent to the community, as it were. You recall that part of the challenge that President Tinubu had was his newness, in quotes, to the community when he became the ECOWAS chair. So people argue that is newness to the blog, as it were, contributed to some of the, maybe it's a bit of a challenge that ECOWAS authority made at some point, particularly with Niger Republic, that maybe going with Faye being also new, the same thing with Ghana president, and of course Ouattara was not in that meeting, so there was no way to think about Ouattara. Togo president, the ceremonial president, was in the meeting, but it was just the ceremonial president. Mm-hmm. We know that it doesn't have the political cloud in country. So at the end of the day, the three countries have exited, and Benin is going for election in February next year. Mm-hmm. So automatically, going to Sierra Leone was more like a silver lining, a silver bullet, as it were.
Right. I mean, the split with Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger remains unresolved. Do you see any realistic path for reintegration under President Bio's leadership?
So I expect that President Bio, Bio, will use the same experience he used at home when he had issues with his election of June 2023, when the opposition political party literally backed out from participating in governance, and to all of that, and how the international community, including ECOWAS, had to come in to mediate. And now Sierra Leone is a bit headed towards a peace country, where opposition has returned, and the insecurity that used to be part of the system has stopped or has reduced, or the conflict, the attempted coup of September 2023, we have not had a recurrence of that since that peace deal. So arguably, the reason for the Sahel exit can be repeated using the same strategy as adopted in Sierra Leone. Mm-hmm. I am hoping, having also served as a military general, a brigadier general as it were, he may use his military experience to engage the folks in the Sahel states, engage them using the military language, and of course also using the political language to sway them.
Austin Egbe is Wadr's liaison officer. Well, in sports, Nigeria's Super Falcons will face Portugal's senior women's national team in high-profile international friendly in Lisbon as part of their final preparations for the 2025 CAF Women's Africa Cup of Nations WAFCON in Morocco. The fixture, acknowledged by Portuguese Football Federation, will take place on Monday, 23 June 2025 today, later in the afternoon. It is part of a week-long training camp designed to sharpen the Falcons' readiness ahead of the continental tournament, which begins in July. Elsewhere, CAF President Patrice Motsepe has extended heartfelt condolences on behalf of the Confederation of African Football and its 54 member associations to the Algeria Football Federation President Abdelmadjid Tebboune, the Algerian government, and the people of Algeria following a tragic incident during MC Alger's league title celebrations. According to Algeria's Ministry of Health, 3 suspects lost their lives and over 70 were injured during the match between MC Alger and Njem Magra. Dr. Motsepe expressed deep sorrow over the loss and assured CAF's continued support while pledging assistance to those affected. And we have come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Faliluso and Seconde for the technical support. Please keep the conversation coming via our social media platforms, X and Instagram at WDR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is a repeat broadcast of our health program, Well-Body with Imo Edet. I am Sankule Janko. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM.